did specifically request to be recorded. So, okay, so let me do that, and then let me also share my screen right now that it is officially being recorded. Okay. So yes, this is a presentation on a tool called Padlet and how that Padlet could be perhaps employed in a distance language classroom. We have done a couple of Padlet activities and little demos here and there about a month ago. Padlet has been mentioned on and off. Let me mute everyone. Second. So trying to mute people. Okay. Okay, everybody should be muted right now. And at any point, if you feel the need to say something or to add something, don't have any qualms about unmuting yourself. Okay, so yes, we are more or less, I think majority of us is more or less familiar with what Padlet is. But having said that, I think it would be good to start with a bit of an introduction of the tool. And we already have the chat going. That is great. I do encourage you to also post your contributions and any questions you may have in the chat box. That way either Chris, Stefan, or maybe myself will be able to field them and respond to them in a timely fashion. This is being recorded. Let me share the slide deck with you too, since I do have it at hand. I just put it in the chat box right here. It is a PDF that should be now available to everyone to download. So, okay, let me close that window here. At some point, we will be switching away from this presentation and taking a look at Padlet itself. At that point, we will be resizing the window. I will share a couple links with you so that you can actually access the activities that I've prepared for today and see how it works to interface with them, okay? Without further ado, let us move to Padlet. So what is Padlet? One way to think about Padlet is as this incredibly versatile online bulletin board. Or maybe another metaphor would be to a virtual tabletop where you can place various artifacts on, whether, that is text or pictures or, videos, sounds, kind of everything goes, everything could be shared, everything could be linked, managed, structured, and scaffolded. In addition to that, it also gives you the opportunity to share maps. If you're into using maps in your classroom, students can record themselves in instant videos. You can likewise do the same thing. Anyone can comment on each other's contributions. It is really powerful in that sense, really versatile, and really interesting. It also allows you to organize all this content visually. Padlet, in that sense, comes with sort of pre-built and pre-configured settings or bulletin board arrangement schemes that you can choose from depending on how you want to handle the content and how you want your content to be visually portrayed and displayed. Okay, so all that goes to sort of say that we should pay attention. We should be interested in Padlet as a pedagogical tool that has its rightful place in the toolbox, along with Zoom, maybe Flipgrid, Canvas, and whatever other platforms you use in your distance classrooms. Again, it is super easy to use, very intuitive and versatile. Something that you will get a chance to experience in a bit. It could be used individually or as a collaborative tool. you can, in that sense, you can use it as a venue or as a platform for your students to, let's say, produce a poster, or maybe to, create a narrative. And likewise, you can assign it for group work, for maybe classwork, for all students to kind of work on and assign them together and produce their content collectively. Okay, in terms of the content itself, it could be posted synchronously or asynchronously. For synchronous or simultaneous experience, it's not going to be as seamless as Google Docs, but it is visible in pretty much real time what is happening on that canvas, on the Padlet. And then, I think that one of the biggest selling point is that it doesn't require you to really install anything. It just works. If you have a device, whether it's a tablet, iPad, iPhone, a Mac, a PC, anything that is internet enabled and can have an internet browser on it, you can use Padlet. Some of us are using or are connecting through iPads. Some of us are on their phones, which is all fantastic because that will show you the true versatility of this platform. There are two things that I should point out. Padlet is one of those tools that is kind of free, but not entirely. You can create up to 3 boards that could be used simultaneously. However, if in an event where you run out of space and would like to create more boards, then you can archive the ones that you no longer use, kind of store them away in the platform. You can always pull them back. They are there. It's just that they are not immediately usable. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind, especially for those of us that may be teaching multiple sessions and may be interested in maybe creating many tasks and many assignments with Padlet. Okay. So how do we then use it? What are some of the practices that we can look at sort of for guidance when thinking about designing with Padlet? And here I would like to go back to yesterday's training session when we were talking about lesson components. Chris went over possible lesson elements that your lesson may be comprised of, right? And there are different schools of thought about this. Different instructors would use different stages of instruction, different elements. This is just a suggestion on our part. And along the lines of this suggestion, we decided to structure today's presentation to put together today's workshop. But if you adhere to a different scheme, that is completely okay. And I'm sure that Padlet would have its place in your whatever design, however you think about instructional design. Okay, so here, moving back to yesterday's presentation, the suggested lesson elements are warm-up, presentation, comprehension check, guided practice, independent practice, and closing. Since we've gone over those yesterday, I'm not going to be covering them again. Instead, I will simply demonstrate activities that kind of meet these tasks and these components. So on that note, I will, I'm still sharing my screen, but I minimized things. And what I would like to do right now is to open up the chat room right here where there are a few contributions already. And I will go ahead and share with you the link to the first activity, which for us is warm up, okay? So let me copy and paste it into the chat. And at this point, everybody should have access to it. If you click on the link, you will be taken to the Padlet, which should look something like this. So this is our activity. This is our simple warm-up activity that is essentially asking students to, and somebody, there we go, fireworks noise, asking students to come up with things that they associate with summer. Okay, so one thing that many of us associate with summer right now, especially those of us who live in New York City or other bigger cities around the country, is fireworks. Okay, and this is one of the contributions that come up right now. But you know, it could be many things. It could be sun, it could be mountains, it could be seaside, it could be hot weather in Mexico. It's really up to you and your students. You can make your contributions by clicking the sort of plus sign here. Okay, where do we have it? Right here, and this will be my cell. And what I associate with summer is the mountains. Okay, and any specific mountains, I don't know, Grand Tetons. And let's say that I would also like to maybe show exactly what I mean and why I think of summer in conjunction with those mountains. So I'm going to go to Google and look for okay, so here are my mountains. I'm going to pull up this image, save it to the desktop, and I will go ahead and upload it to my contribution. Nope, that's a different one. There we go. I'm going to make it a little bit, move it around a bit. There we go. Okay. So what I would like you to do now is to take a minute or two, if you haven't already, to contribute to this activity, to help us create this effectively, mind map or this collage of various summer associations. Okay. And you can post text, you can insert images, sounds or videos if you have any. The process is very similar to what I just demonstrated with the image. Okay, let me refresh it. Beautiful. Okay. And as an instructor, okay, as we have our, as people are posting their images, what we could do is we can then connect them to each other. We can group them. So this is ice cream. Okay, this is fun in the sun. This is also sun. So maybe let's move these two together. Let us connect them to each other and let us maybe connect the two to the main post. And I think you are starting to see how this very simple activity could suddenly become a little bit more complex. Maybe we can turn it into some sort of a mind map or even a summer vocabulary collage, which then could be recycled at other occasions. Okay. So this is really good. If things are posting a little bit too low, they can always be moved around so that they're not, on top of each other. And then you'll also notice that It is possible to comment on each other's contributions. Somebody already commented to swimming in the sea. And likewise, you can, in the Facebook fashion or Twitter fashion, like things that other people are posting. So this would be our typical, or maybe less typical, warm-up activity. Let me move now back over to the presentation. So the next item on the list is a comprehension check activity. And so staying with the traveling theme, or the summer theme rather, here's our little comprehension check. Let me share the link with you. Okay, so one thing that you will notice right away is that the layout is different in this particular exercise, right? It is a linear. There is only one column in the center of the page with the exercise, with the prompt. And then students will be contributing to it by posting, by making contributions that would sort of create this feed, right? So the task at hand here is that it looks like many of us travel during the summer. And what I did here is I linked one of my favorite Airbnb listings, where I hope to travel one day. It doesn't really look very likely at the moment, but should I go there, or before I go there, I'm curious to learn about what people think about this specific listing. So the task is to click on the link right here, which should open in a separate window, take you directly to the listing. Sorry, got a little bit mixed up here. Here we go. Nope, not really cooperating today. Okay, that's fine. I'm just gonna go here. So yeah, take a look at the listing, take a look at the pictures, look at the price, the amenities, and say if I should or should not travel there, and I should not stay there. Okay, so we have responses popping up. Very good. And these are comments. Okay, excellent. What happens when I hit the plus sign is that I will create a separate box where I will type in I'm not convinced. Perhaps you could convince me in person. And what I did here is I invited you to, answer with maybe with a recording, which is something that you can also do in Padlet by pressing the plus sign. And one of the things that you can do is either record your voice, or you can capture a video from your camera. So those of us who have participated in our Flipgrid workshop, this looks pretty familiar, except for it's all kind of contained in the Padlet ecosystem. Okay. Too expensive, stay at Motel 6. Take that into account. Okay, moving forward. So that was our comprehension check. The next item is guided practice. And so for that specific activity, I thought to structure it as a group work where students could be broken into breakout rooms. Let's say 4 different breakout rooms that will be arranged according to this layout here. And then within the breakout rooms, the task for them would be to oh, sorry, forgot to share the link with you. Okay, so here's the link to the fourth activity. So within the breakout rooms, they are supposed to go to Airbnb and look for a place where they may all wish to stay at next time that they all travel together. And this is somewhat structured in the sense that I asked them to list the top 3 things that they look for when they decide, when we're making a decision whether to stay there or not. So it could be the price, it could be location, it could be the color of the walls. I'm not really sure, but it's on them to justify and to explain that. They would be making their contributions in their respective groups by hitting the plus sign here. So I'm not going to do that, but you kind of get an idea. And one thing that they would need to do is to share their listing link. Lighthouse stay. Thanks, Chris. Chris, do you have a link for this? If not, that's okay. Yes. All right. So you can post this later, and then these links don't expire. In other words, those Padlets don't expire unless we as instructors choose to either remove them completely, delete them, or archive them. Okay. So that being said, if at any point after this presentation you want to go back to these Padlets and see how they work, what you can do with them, what kind of content they allow you to post, here we go. Here's a listing. Stay in a cave by Anonymous. Okay, so you can do that. These things will be available. Okay, and moving forward down our list, the last activity would be independent practice, which is also a Padlet activity that talks about entitled My Dream Stay. And I'm sharing the link with you right now. Okay, so you're welcome to open it. Now, the idea behind this activity is for students to work individually in creating a poster, in creating a collage of their dream stay. Within that collage, they can, map the location of the spot. They can talk about the weather. They can talk about the activities that are available to them in the area. They can go as far as listing restaurants they're interested in eating at. If menus for these restaurants are available, those could also be posted as images. If they can find video clips from these locations, those could also be included. So unlike with the previous Padlets, this Padlet would be something that students would establish on their own. We as instructors can, of course, take advantage of Padlet and build these various different boards, but likewise, students have access to this platform too, and they can also use it to create their own projects, which speaks to the platform's versatility. And when speaking of students and instructors and how this platform could be used, I hope that I've piqued your interest in Padlet and gave you a couple ideas to maybe consider. But I also think that it is one thing to hear about Padlet from me, and a completely different thing to hear about its affordances from your fellow instructors. So with that being said, we have 2 instructors among us who have actually already used Padlet in their classes and who have kindly agreed to talk about their experiences from the instructor standpoint. And those instructors are Angie Craig-Flores and Celia Weber. So without further ado, I'm gonna pass the floor over to Angie so that she could share with us the ways in which she utilized Padlet in her classes. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing right now. Okay. Angie, if you're there, feel free to unmute yourself and share your screen. Okay.
Hello?
There you are.
Yeah, I just lost all of the videos. I don't know where. I can't find the little thing to share my screen.
Oh, you know, that's fine. Why don't you take a few more minutes to sort this out, and maybe we'll switch to Celia, and so that Celia could present her material. How about that?
That's fine, yeah, because I lost all of the videos. I don't know why I can't see you guys. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Celia, are you ready?
Okay. So the first thing that I did was just to introduce people to the idea of Padlet was to put my syllabus mostly on Padlet. And some of you may have already seen this. And I should stress that this is just the information, expectations, grading, and other materials that I put on there with links to support services and the plagiarism rules and all that. That's basically the meat of the syllabus is on here. And so they were already had the option to interact with Padlet before the class started. And I also did a collaborative input activity on Zoom conventions with them before class started so that they could give me input what they have found helpful on Zoom. We did that pre-class. It's important to say that I also have a PDF version of the syllabus on my site so that people who didn't want to interact with Padlet or wanted an actual schedule, they could go there and see that. So that was just the first thing. And then my main goal with Padlet really was to build community. And that's something I think we can do very well with Padlet. The first thing that we did was, the very first one was the course started with places to look at. And so one of the very first things we did, and this was still kind of half in English, half in German, was I had them pin favorite places in Manhattan or New York that they liked and with minimal information. So for example, one person just wrote one line. And at that point, they hadn't figured out yet that they had to put their names on those little boxes so that I would know who posted it. So you can see this is anonymous at this point. But later we figured that out. But it was the first idea what people liked in New York, and we kind of started to get to know each other. And a little bit later, we improved the situation by doing this more extensive bulletin board basically of all the students in the class. And the idea was that I gave them 10 questions or so, 5 or 6 of which they should answer. And the thing is always in my class, you can make stuff up. You don't have to tell the truth so that people aren't forced to disclose personal information. But and then one thing that they did last weekend that they thought was typical for them. So they could post a photo, but they didn't have to. And so they recorded a short response where they actually audio recorded their responses. And so we kind of got to know each other that way. And people also told me that they listened to these, and I found it kind of helpful. So that was kind of in the beginning, just the getting to know each other thing. And since then, we've done a few other things. One thing was that we have things feeding into class and also coming out of class. One of them that fed into class was a similar format. They had to report on an interesting person, and they had to sign up for one of those, and then they posted a picture of that person that they found online, and they wrote a little text about it based on a similar text that we had in the textbook. And they also audio recorded exactly that text so that I could give them speaking feedback. So it was also speaking practice. And on the day after this was due, one of the homeworks was to listen to all of them. And then the day after that, in class, we were doing comparatives. And so we were talking about which one do you find more interesting or more surprising, and which one is the coolest. And so we practiced with that. And another one was that the textbook had free time activities, leisure activities, a bulletin board. And so we imitated a bulletin board of that, where people were asking for others to do leisure activities with them. And so they replied to each other's posts on the bulletin board. So that was also something that came out of class, but then went into homework and continued a little bit. Another thing that is more collaborative is an experiment we're running right now. And the initial assignment here was just to write a sentence that they thought might start a good story. So we had all kinds of sentences here, including the duck waddles to the pond, which I did not think would grow very much after this. So they have an assignment of writing 1 or 2 sentences twice a week to continue any of the stories. So they can pick whether they continue. But we do this regularly, and it kind of runs along everything else that we do. It's just free writing practice, basically. And so it's interesting to see how they grow. And in one of the cases, some cases it gets very absurd, and some of them the story grows pretty well. Some stories somehow don't grow. But I think they're having fun just replying to each other and figuring out new turns in the stories, and this is kind of running aside everything else that we're doing. And I also see them integrating new grammar in those sometimes. So that's one thing that's highly collaborative, also asynchronous. I'm using it pretty much only as asynchronously. And then another one where it's more about just also getting to know each other, writing. This was Synclanes, which some of you may know and have used 5-line poems with a particular format. And so I posted the instructions here. And then every one of them basically made up their own Synclane in German. And you know, now they're going back and we're kind of talking about the poems. So that's also kind of fun. What I also wanted to show just briefly is how this all integrates in Canvas, because that's something I had to figure out. So for example, for the interesting persons, I had a Google Doc where they could sign up for a particular person. And then I always give them the Padlet link that you can get under the sharing tab in Padlet easily, but you can also integrate the Padlet itself into the assignment. And you do that by just getting the HTML off Padlet. In the share option, you get an HTML code that you can include in the assignment. And if you're editing an assignment, you get a choice to work in HTML, and you just copy that whole block of text into your assignment. And then when you save it, this will turn up, and they can just click on this and immediately participate. They don't even have to go out of Canvas to do this. I've had good experiences. I have people on tablets and on computers and various formats, and nobody has really had issues with it. It does take telling people that it's the plus sign that posts things. So we had a learning curve, which I didn't really expect. I thought they were going to be much more savvy than I was, and that was actually not the case. So I think it's a good idea with any app that we use to just have a very, very simple assignment first that doesn't count for anything, and have them get familiar with the technology first before they actually have to do something with it. Yeah, and one question mark for me with Padlet is accessibility. VoiceThread is pretty good now, I think, in terms of that they have a universal version. People who rely on screen readers, I think there will be difficulty. You have a lot of options which kinds of material you can post here. And so in that sense, it's more universal. But I think if you have somebody who actually uses a screen reader or something like that, then you might run into trouble with Padlet. So that might be one counterindication. And that's really all I wanted to say, I guess.
Thank you, Celia. That was pretty awesome. Those are some really interesting, innovative, original ideas. 2 things that I wanted to comment on. Thing number 1 is if any of you are interested in learning how to insert iframes or HTML code into your canvas so that everything is neatly embedded sort of within one canvas box, I am happy to show you how to do it, either in my office hours, which take place daily at 3 o'clock, or by appointment. So I'm more than available to instruct you with that. And then secondly, when it comes to accessibility, and this is more to Celia really, one thing to consider is the innate accessibility that's built into the later Apple software, where it actually recognizes what's on the screen and kind of tells you and articulates what it is that you're interfacing with. Again, this is something that we can discuss outside of this presentation. But thank you. This is that was great. Angie, are we ready?
I think so. I hope
Okay.
so. Let me see if I can share my screen. Yes, you see it? Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So my activities are nowhere as sophisticated as Celia's. I'm still learning. I started to use it last semester, and the way I'm actually going to start from the end, if you don't mind. How we started to use it was basically for the students to create and use it as a platform for the final projects, to organize their final projects, and then have everything that they wanted to share in groups for the oral presentation here. So this is from one of my students this semester. I did have to change the final project once we went post-COVID, because the original final project that we had was that they had to visit Hispanic neighborhoods in New York, and obviously that was not the possibility, so we had to change. And this new project, they needed to search for authentic material online in order for them to continue to practice the target language beyond the classroom. And so this is what they had to choose a text. And so here they had to, what text they wrote, they chose, and to write about it. A movie, in this case, it would write a synopsis and a reflection about it. And then also audio and podcast, songs, etc. So the good thing that Padlet offers you is a great way to organize the material, because it's very, very clear, and then the student had to present it in a group. So everything was there, and you can put the song here, add the translation or transcription, etc. So it was, and then the final reflection. So it was a way for them to organize it very well. That's one example, and this is another example. This one is choosing the grid layout, and the other one, I don't remember what it's called, but it's more straightforward. So these are just examples that the students use to present their final projects. In class, synchronously, I've used it very basically. I mean, you're incredibly sophisticated on it, but you can also use it maybe just instead of a Google Doc, so that it just looks a little bit more inviting, if you wish. And this activity is super basic. It was done after, so this is a page in Canvas that I created in order to do a synchronous session. And so I guided them through everything that they had to do. And they had to go into the website that we use, and then talk about things and write, a little synopsis, 5 minutes at the end of class. So instead of using a Google Doc, I created a Padlet. And as you see, I incorporated the Padlet, as Celia was saying, within my within my Canvas page. And then each group of the breakout session would write a little something. So this is super basic, but it's organized, and it's better than, I thought it was better than Google Doc, but it could serve that function too. So you can go super sophisticated or as simple as this. And then yesterday in the workshop, when we were talking precisely about, the lesson plan, etc., we were in a breakout session, and we were thinking that maybe we could also use it similarly to what Celia has presented, of using it as a syllabus platform, but as a lesson plan platform, so that you can create it just for the day, for the lesson plan. So it's very well, it allows you to organize everything and to have everything right here. And I think I haven't done it yet, so I think this is what I might try to do next semester, since it's easier, and we know that when we are in Zoom, we need to be very, very clear with everything that we give the students so that it's right there at hand, and to avoid as many transitions from one platform to the other. So I think that this might be helpful in that sense, because you can divide it in the different parts of the lesson plan, whatever it is that you want. And then by the end of the class, the student can have a visual, right, of what it is that we accomplished today. These were our goals, and these were the sequence of the activities that we followed. They can, we were practicing, and Juan Carlos added a video and text, etc. So the students can, you know, all of the activities that you can create by the end of the lesson plan, they have everything there in one. So I think that that can be very helpful. This is how it would look in the actual thing. These are not developed activities, okay? These are just placeholders that we put. But for example, in the toolkit, you can also, this would link to your page wherever you have your vocabulary, or I think that you can even link it to your workbook or your textbook, etc. So this is what we were exploring yesterday in the workshop. So you can go from the very, very basic to a lot more sophisticated, and I think that it's very helpful, Padlet, actually. I like it. All of the it's very easy, you know, to use. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Angie, for your contribution. If I can make one addition to or comment to what you were saying, you were drawing this comparison between Padlet and Google Docs, and structurally or logistically,
they're very different.
they may be pretty similar. One thing that to keep in mind when we are looking at either is that for Google Docs, we are essentially dealing with a vertical top-down orientation, right? And that is how the content is being presented, how the content is being laid out. There isn't like a whole lot of room to manipulate things around. With Padlet, we can choose to have that kind of orientation with the layout, but there's also a myriad of other orientations and other layouts that we can rely on to structure and organize our content. So that's what I wanted to add. Thank you so much. Let me share. Let me go back to my screen sharing now. Okay, here we go. And on that note, we do have about 15 minutes for questions, comments. So I would like to open the floor to those. If you have any questions, please let us know.
Simon, I have one question.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for the wonderful activities. My question is about copyright. So you can post many things, including like movies and songs. So when we post those songs or maybe movies, do we need to worry about the copyrights, or we don't have to?
You know, Fumiko, that is a tricky question that the answer to which would be it really depends. I would be happy to meet with you separately so that we can look at specific cases and examples of what it is that you want to do, kind of the stuff that you want to post. It is next to impossible to talk kind of in wholesale about this. There's just too many considerations.
Oh.
Okay, so yeah, but let's talk
Okay,
in person, look at the materials and go from there, okay?
I can chime in on that last topic very quickly. If you were really concerned about that, two ideas to keep in mind are if you link to maybe a YouTube video, then you would just be linking to a video and you wouldn't be posting the video yourself. And also if you wanted to post an image, you could use Google image search and set it so that you only select images that can be reused, that have that kind of license. So that would help address any copyright issues on one level. But as Simon said, you know, if you want to look at a specific case, you should really, you know, think through it a little bit, maybe talk with him about it.
Thank you.
Jose Antonio?
Yeah, in the case of Celia, and I think Angie as well, it seemed to me that they were using more than one window for Padlet, and you said that you can use only this or how were they able to use more than 3 Padlet windows?
I will let Celia take that question.
So for my Padlets, I set them up. The students just get the link, which means that they don't set them up. And so for them, there is no limit because they're just participating in the Padlets. They're not setting them up themselves. But my question for things like making their final projects, where they would presumably set up their own Padlet, then you run into the question, how many of those can they handle before they run into the limit? And I think there is also the question, if you have teaching assistants who are teaching classes who may not have funding for this kind of expanding into the paid version, how do you handle that? Because I ran out of free Padlets extremely quickly. And most of them I don't want to archive because they're still active. People will want to back them. And so it allows you a lot more setups in terms of how the format of the Padlets you have. But it's $100 a year. And so, you know, that's money that not everybody can put into that. So yeah, for the students, as long as I set them up, it's free. But if they want to set them up, then they run into the limit.
Okay.
I think Stefan would like to say something.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Celia. Thank you, Angie. Wonderful presentation. Thank you, Simon. Again, if I could have you reach out to me or Chris or Simon, simply telling us, you know, that you're interested in a paid version of Padlet. You know, once I compile what I feel is a, you know, substantive amount, I'm happy to go to the administration and see if we can get an enterprise license for Columbia. But I need to have, you know, kind of a list of names. Without the list of name, I need to be able to say so many people want to use that. So if you can do that, that would be helpful.
Thanks, Stefan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just to kind of summarize everything, if you are an instructor or any user with the free version of Padlet, you can create and use up to 3 Padlets at the same time. If you are a student, so sort of on the receiving end, there is no limits in terms of how many links you can click on, how many Padlets you can receive. Okay, Stefan, do you still have your hand up, or?
Sorry, I'll put it down.
Okay, no worries. Pascal, I think, is next.
Yeah, I mean, can you extract the content of a Padlet? I mean, to save it, or is it your limit?
Yeah. So you can share it. You can print it. You can, I believe, it gives you an option to even save it as a spreadsheet.
Oh, okay. So that could be like a stopgap solution if you're not using it too much.
Yeah, that could be it, definitely. Or, you know, just put it in the archive.
But I mean, if you want, if you have 3 Padlets that you can sort of erase and start again, so you could use them as a you know, a billboard that you can take all the stuff off it and then start again. But if you don't want to lose the materials that the students created or everything that you prepared, you could still save it as a PDF or.
You can save it as a PDF, yes.
So that could be, you know, helpful.
That is, yeah, possible.
If it's not active anymore. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do we have anyone else? Okay, well, it looks like we are out of questions at this point. If anything comes up, do let us know. You should have a copy of the slide deck from today. The copy includes all the links to all the activities that I've put together. Those activities will be available for a while, so, you know, feel free to click on them, interact with them, add, subtract, remove, move things around. Just, you know, see how it works and what it looks like on the receiving end. In other words, how your students would be interfacing with these Padlets. And if you have follow-up questions, whether it's, you know, copyrights or anything else really, let us know. We have our daily office hours at 11 o'clock with Chris, and then at 3 p.m. With me. Stefan is also available. This presentation is recorded. We will throw it on the web once we have a viewable copy. And other than that, oh yes, I would like to also remind you that tomorrow we have our last day of the training for the second portion of the summer, so Summer B. And then on Friday, we have our weekly social hour, and there's also our weekly meeting of the Zesty group with led by Maria Luisa Gozzi, which takes place at 1 o'clock. So I think I got it all. Thank you for your participation, and I will see you around.
I have a quick reminder for everybody. Don't forget to vote for the language lecturers committee, please.
Yes.
All right. We have some people whom we know, so we might as well make a way for them.
Yes.
That's it from me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Abdul. Thank you for the reminder.
I'll stay to talk to you, Stefan.
What?
What?
Yeah, I want to talk to you. When everybody's gone, I want to talk to you.
I want to talk to you, man.
I do.
All right.